soon.
Yeah. Okay. Really? Yeah. Well, then we'll talk about, Nicole, we can chat about her, the other practicum student that applied. So she's really good.
Is she?
Yeah, she's an older undergrad student, probably like 20 or 21.
Does anyone else require a cupcake before we start?
Should smush one onto Doc Brown's.
Okay, get it started. So before we officially start, I want you all to know I got my wisdom teeth pulled a week ago. So if I sound funny or anything, if I stop talking, that's why. Anyways, so on behalf of Colleen and I, we'd like to welcome you to our presentation regarding our work term this spring-summer. And before we start, we would really like if each of you would be able to introduce yourselves. So if you could just say your name, your position in the lab or within the University of Calgary, as well as an interesting fact about you, we would just love that. Who wants to start? Loren.
Me! I'm Loren. I'm Nicole's one of her PhD students, and my interesting fact is that I got to work very closely with you both this summer. Does that count?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm Heather. I'm a postdoctoral fellow, and I just got in from Houston last week.
Yay!
I'm Monica. I'm the practicum coordinator. Well, I just bought a new travel trailer, and I'm going camping this weekend for the first time, so hopefully it won't. Trailer trash.
Nice.
Just call me Barbie.
Awesome. I always wanted to make one.
I'm Tina. I'm the Associate Dean Academic. Not very much interesting.
Hi, you guys. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfect timing. And no interesting facts about me, let me think.
We're just doing
Doing this job again after 3 years off and 13 years before I did it, so I'm back at it.
Awesome.
I'm Nicole. Interesting fact, my kids are all now full-day school.
Sorry, this isn't going to work. I'm getting almost next to nothing.
Okay, Doug, we have the DVD recording, so we can just mail you the DVD. Does that work for you?
Can you type into
That's
the
what I did
text part?
before, yeah.
Just explain what.
Yeah,
not working.
Very well. They've got time.
I just didn't hear before.
It might be his internet, maybe. You guys can keep on going. Yeah.
I'm Mike. I am gainfully employed exercise physiologist in the lab. And I really don't know what's interesting about me. I am a much worse golfer than Nicole.
I won the member guest as illustrator.
Oh, it's a good goal.
My name's Mika. I am research coordinator / research assistant / catch-all. An interesting fact, I was a practicum student for 3 semesters, and now I have my first practicum student next week. So that's sort of interesting and fun.
She's one of my best friends. It's also a fun fact. Okay. Fantastic. My name's Alicia. I'm going into my 5th year of kinesiology at the UC. And the number one reason why I joined and I decided to do a work term was actually because of my mom. I lost her to cancer a year and a half ago, and it was breast cancer, but it did metastasize to her brain and lungs. And I was really struggling with it for the past year and a half, and being able to grieve and get over it, I had major problems seeing any cancer patients out. So if I saw anyone that had a scarf on their head, or they were bald, or you could just clearly see that they were sick, I would shut down and I couldn't function. And I work in a physio clinic, and it was actually an issue there as well, because sometimes we would have cancer patients come in and I couldn't work with them. And as a physio assistant, it's obviously part of my job that I'd be able to do that. So I needed to find a way that I could be involved with cancer patients and be able to overcome that. So that was definitely the number one reason why I chose to do a work term specifically with the health and wellness lab. But regarding a work term in general, I knew that the experience that you would have and the knowledge that you would gain from working hands-on, as opposed to sitting in a lecture hall and listening to a prof speak to you, 2 very different educational experiences, and I really wanted to take advantage of the opportunity that we have here in KNES to have a work term. So that's pretty much what I did. I also volunteer in the Thrive Center, so I had like a bit of clue about the movement, so I thought I'd go for it.
Hi everyone, my name is Colleen and I'm a fourth year kinesiology student, and the reason why I decided to apply for this was partially because I was already a volunteer at the Strive Center as well, and I found that I really enjoyed working with cancer survivors, and I thought this would be an interesting way to take that to the next level and kind of become more involved, because I didn't like just kind of volunteering on the surface. I'd like to do more, and I also took KNES 253 with Lorraine, and she had so much passion about using exercise as a way to improve quality of life, and I really truly believe in that concept, and I thought this would be a good way to kind of pursue that. So yeah, that's me. Okay, so the Health and Wellness Lab, I know that you guys all know about it, but it's a facility that conducts research investigating ways to improve quality of life of cancer survivors, specifically through the development of physical activity programming. And this is really important that they find ways to translate the knowledge obtained through research and put it into a practical way that can benefit survivors in the local area. So some of the programs include Enhance, which is a study that Lauren's doing right now on head and neck cancer survivors and seeing how resistance training can potentially reverse cachexia and improve quality of life. Beauty, which is a program that we worked with a little bit as well, and that is a program that is 12 to 24 weeks that involves exercise sessions, education sessions, as well as an assessment and a home-based exercise program. Yoga Thrive, which we didn't get to work with too much at all because it's not going on in the summer, but it's yoga for cancer survivors offered at locations around the city. The Thrive Center, which was kind of my primary area this summer, and it's a free fitness facility for cancer survivors that's student-run. And the Thrive Program, which is Meg's baby, and it is a for-fee assessment and program for cancer survivors.
So obviously by now you're aware that this lab is working with cancer survivors. So in a lot of the programs they are working just with general, so any type of cancer can be involved in the Thrive Center or Thrive programs. With the studies, however, there are studies that are specific for different types of cancer, such as Enhance, as Colleen had mentioned, which is for head and neck cancer patients, as well as Breast, which is the beauty program, as well as Amber, which is also another study that's going on.
And so we wanted to share our thoughts on working with these populations. I really enjoy working with cancer survivors, specifically because in this the program and research environment, they're making that choice to try to pursue active living, and so they're really receptive and enthusiastic about being at the sessions or being involved in the different programs, so I really enjoyed that. And I specifically like working with the more specific head, neck, and breast populations as opposed to just the general that you see in the Thrive Center, because it allows you that opportunity to do some research, understand the treatment, the side effects, stuff like that, so you can ask them appropriate questions and deal with them in that way.
And especially for me, considering what I just briefly mentioned before, I definitely found that being able to work with this population, and so many of them being so positive, as Colleen mentioned, it really did help me to overcome with my mom and everything that I mentioned before, which is fantastic. And just, it's amazing how dedicated they are to their programs, even though some of them are super sick. And I loved with the Enhanced program how some people got really sick and then they would come back. And it was just amazing to see that they could be they could adhere so much to their program, considering what they're going through. And then it kind of made me think of like me doing an exercise program, and how could I not be doing one if they're so willing to do it for themselves? So I think that's great. We're just going to go over a couple quick definitions, just so there's no issues here. Cancer is an umbrella term for multiple diseases in which abnormal cells grow out of control, and there's over 100 types of cancer. And these develop due to the damage of the body's DNA. The cancer typically forms as a tumor, which invades proximal tissue by replacing other cells that previously would be considered healthy. And one interesting fact is that when they're naming cancer, it always starts with the name of the cancer where it started, and then if it goes to other places in the body, it would be considered metastatic. So if you have breast cancer, for instance, and then it goes to other places, it would be metastatic breast cancer. The stage is the extent of cancer in the body. Staging is usually based on the size of the tumor, whether lymph nodes contain cancer, and whether the cancer has spread from the original site to other parts of the body. Tumor grade is the description of a tumor based on how abnormal the tumor cells and the tumor tissue appear under a microscope. It is an indicator of how quickly a tumor is likely to grow and spread, and grading systems do differ between cancer types.
So cancer survivor, though there's a ton of different definitions. The one that we use most often in the lab or in our work was any individual from the point of diagnosis onwards through the rest of their life. And this is what the National Cancer Institute's definition is. Cachexia, we learned a lot about that through ENHANCE in the initial days, and it's dramatic weight loss associated with cancer that involves preferential wasting of muscle tissue as well as an increased metabolic rate. And unlike starvation, it cannot be reversed through nutrition. Efficacy versus effectiveness was something that we talked about a lot in our journal article clubs. And it's whether or not a treatment is capable of producing significant results in only a lab kind of controlled setting, or whether or not it can actually be applied to like the general population in the real world. So those are some basic terms that we learned. So this is my mind map of the lab.
It's like my mind.
So they wanted us to go over and describe the health and wellness lab, and really what was one of the most important parts of it for us was the incredible people that we got to work with. Stop laughing, Mike. And as you can see, the people in green are staff, people in blue are graduate students, and then Alicia and I are purple. Nicole's special, and she's in the middle in red. And as you can see, each arrow indicates some amount of collaboration. And there's so many arrows because there's so much interworking in the lab, and that was really great for us as practicum students, not only because it allowed us to kind of practice developing professional relationships, but it also gave us the opportunity to meet such incredibly intelligent and passionate individuals who are so willing to share their knowledge on these different topics. So we got exposed to a whole lot over the summer.
This is the Thrive Lab office in the photo exhibiting. Two things that I did want to touch on was the fact that Colleen and I were able to work with each other. Typically in work terms, it's just an individual student that would be dealing with professionals, but we had the opportunity this summer to collaborate on a community project, as well as the fact that even when we were working on our own projects, we really were working together and supporting each other, and it just worked out really well for us to have that, and we're really happy about that. So overall, it did enhance our experience. And regarding work sites, would you like to touch on that?
Sure. So one of the cool aspects of this work term was we were able to not only work in the office, but see different sites like the Holy Cross, like the Tom Baker, the Thrive Center, Wellspring, and that kept the learning process pretty dynamic because we got exposed to a whole bunch of different things, but it also allowed us to get a better idea of where the participants had to be, and so when they're talking about their experiences at the Tom Baker, we could kind of put a face to a name kind of deal. So I thought that was really beneficial for us.
And one more benefit that we had discussed multiple times when we were going through this presentation is the fact that there are days when you're sitting in the office and you're filing and you're typing and you're filing and you just kind of get on auto mode. And we found that when we got to have these opportunities to get out of the lab and get working with cancer patients in their environment where they need to be doing exercise, etc., it really brought us back to the reason why we were doing the work term to begin with, and it motivated us to keep going, which is fantastic.
Okay, a day in the life. So working in the health and wellness lab, really no day was ever the same, which was pretty great because it kept the learning pretty dynamic. But this is kind of a compilation of what happened in my days over a whole week. So bear with me. But I would generally arrive around 7:30ish. But one nice thing was that Nicole and Loren kind of gave us free reign and trusted us to do our own thing, and so I got to kind of monitor my hours as I wanted. And I generally get in, work on some extra projects, check my emails, as I quickly found emails are not something you get once a month now. And then I was lucky enough, extremely lucky, to be able to help out with the AMBER assessments. And AMBER's an Alberta-wide breast cancer study. And I would go and observe and sometimes help record if I was lucky. And it gave me a lot of insight into what it's like being a CEP in a research setting. And I also got to meet some pretty incredible ladies, so that was one of the highlights of my term. And then every Wednesday we have our journal article club. I've included an article review in each of your guys' little packages. And these article clubs were Alicia or I would alternate. We'd choose an article that pertained to what we were learning about, and we'd analyze it and then present it to our supervisors and each other. And this was super beneficial as it helped us practice our critical thinking skills and learn so much about the research that's going on in this field right now. And then I would work on my manual edits, or writing the manual, but it felt like a lot of edits, which is good. And then researching for study charts, miscellaneous tasks, and then on Tuesdays and Thursdays we got to help out with enhanced sessions, keeping the participants company, kind of monitoring them a little bit, but mostly just trying to make them feel at home. And then on Fridays we do our weekly reports, which was great because since Nicole and Loren let us have free reign, we kind of got to let them know what we've been up to on Fridays and keep them updated. Yeah. Okay, so my projects, the three main ones that I worked on were the Thrive Center manual, my study charts, and the community project. And so I'll discuss all of those briefly. So the manual was my baby this summer, and it's created because the Thrive Center is unique in the fact that it's a student volunteer-run free fitness facility for cancer survivors, and in my research I have not found another one, at least not in North America, not that's written about in English. Yeah. So the idea was if we created a manual, we'd be able to hopefully disseminate it and create other similar programs like that across Canada, North America, wherever. And included in it is description of participants, how we do intake, volunteer hiring, training, how the Thrive Center is maintained throughout the year, the equipment that involves. It really kind of details everything that you need to know for the creation and maintenance of a similar center. And the process of making it, it began with just creating an outline, a table of contents that went back and forth with edits, and then we'd add important points underneath each of those. And because I wasn't there for the creation of the Thrive Center and people put so much work in it, it was appropriate that they would be able to help out by creating it, so I didn't miss any major points. So I approached collaborators and asked for their help and send them what they needed to give us. And then afterwards, after they'd gone back to me, we compiled it all and then edited. And finally we formatted it, and it's right there if you guys want to take a look at it. Yeah, pretty excited. Awesome. That's that.
So,
Study charts.
do you want to just talk about it?
Sure. Okay. Is the slide get deleted? Oh, okay.
Oh, there it is.
So study charts were the other thing. At a certain point, about halfway through the semester, between waiting for certain sections to come back, we had a bit of a lull in the manual production. So I got to start on a new project, which were the study charts, which you each also have in front of you. And these were created so that when writing different introductions or different papers and stuff, we'd have a mass list of all the articles that pertain to those subjects. And as you can see, I created 4. The first actually started off with exercise and symptom management, and then implementation and effectiveness of different community-based programming that's talked about exercise. It wasn't all cancer, but it was mostly cancer. Then some breast cancer and exercise, and some brain cancer and exercise. And this gave me a great opportunity to not only see a lot of the research that is out there, but learn how to read it and synthesize it relatively quickly. It's good. Okay.
Cupcakes near us.
I know. I was going to ask. Cupcakes a common theme?
Yeah. We have cupcakes every day. Every day in life, create cupcakes. Anyway, so Colleen and I did a lot together, but some things were different. So for me, during the first 2 months of the work term, I actually was taking a night course as well as working part-time, which I would never suggest for another work term student to ever do. Anyways, so the time that I arrived was always different, but there were days when I would just stay late at night, or I would come in on weekends to do my work as well. Every single day, the first thing that I always did was check my email, because like Colleen had said, there's always something there. I had been working on 3 separate projects, so either I would be doing enhanced stuff, so I would be filing, doing data entry, tracking, and then for education, it took a lot of research, so that was something that I worked on over time as well. And then for the community project, Colleen and I would meet whenever it worked for us. which is basically around everyone else's schedule when we were not needed somewhere else. And then we would determine who we were going to contact and go ahead with formatting letters, etc., and the brochure in order to hand that out. And then, like Colleen had mentioned, we had weekly meetings, so that was the same for me as it was for her. And then also the Friday emails. So if you look in my little package, my emails are in here as well as everything else that I've done pretty much. So if you want to look at stuff, you're more than welcome to check that out. Filing. Lots of filing.
So some other things, I feel really lucky and I felt like I benefited a lot from the chance to work on a bunch of different projects throughout the semester. Like helping out with some edits and adding a glossary and medication list as well as various posters and pamphlets. So I got to be exposed to a lot of different things that were going on in the lab, which is part of the reason why I got to work with a bunch of different people. So yeah, that's that.
So yeah.
Concrete knowledge that I gained throughout this term. I have learned so much about cancer, specifically treatments and side effects that happen, a lot through the different sessions that we got to go to. Dr. Taylor gave us a great presentation on breast cancer, and going to some of the ones at TVCC and reading articles and stuff like that has gotten me a lot of knowledge about that, but by no means a super in-depth one because I know there's so much out there to learn. And then a much better understanding of randomized controlled trials and research. I had no idea about research. It was just this big scary cloud that terrified me, and now I feel like I have some understanding of how it works. The benefits of exercise, boy do I ever know about that now. So that's good. And I honestly, up until this point, I'd never been really involved in like exercise classes in that kind of setting, and I absolutely loved it. How to create constructive and professional reports was really cool. Looking through data and like doing that, and how to analyze scientific articles, because again, they were terrifying up until this summer, and now I actually get excited about it, which is weird. But, yeah.
So of the 3 projects I worked on, the first one was research assisting for Loren's study, which is the enhanced program. And just an overview of that, the enhanced program aims to use exercise, specifically strength training, to restore quality of life by promoting healthy body composition and empowering patients to regain control in physical functioning. With the research assisting, when it commenced, a lot of it was catching up with things so there was a practicum student, and then there was a break, and then there was me. So I had to do a bit of catching up with that prior to really getting into the other duties that I had within the research assisting. So again, data entry, filing, tracking, lots of tracking, online, on the computer, paper, but we did it. And then I also went ahead and I reorganized the files for the participants that are in this study so that it would be more efficient for Loren to find what she was looking for within, or whoever else is going to be within the study specifically. Also reporting, which was one of my favorite parts actually. So there's 5 assessments that the participants in the study do, and with each one they actually receive a report that goes over the results of their assessment, and then Loren sits down with them and can show them that. So with the reporting, you get to enter the data, but then you actually get to write your own commentary based on what you can see from like their past assessments versus how they are currently. So that was really cool to be able to do that. I struggled with it at first, but Loren and I had a couple meetings about it, and I got a grip on it eventually. I really like that. I got to shadow an assessment with Jess, which was really great as well. I only did one, but it was there, so I get points for that. And then also, just as Colleen had, we did assist with the bi-weekly fitness classes that are involved with the enhanced study, so that was really nice. And then education. So originally, this was supposed to be that I would update all the PowerPoints that are involved in this lab. And then I was also supposed to edit and update all the handouts and anything that was involved for any of the studies, as well as the programs. However, there was quite a struggle to get going on this. I really struggled with time management, and I really focused on the enhanced study for quite some time. So I fell behind with this, and I had a meeting with Loren and Nicole, and we decided that as opposed to doing what we had originally intended for me to do, that I would just make 5 handouts based on current literature regarding exercise in cancer survivors, nutrition in cancer survivors, stress management for cancer survivors, goal setting, and sleep hygiene. So with that, I went through and I read each of the articles, lots and lots of articles, we both read lots of articles. So. And the point of it was to be able to read that information, summarize it for myself, but then also be able to make it simplified so that we could hand it out to a cancer survivor and they would get the general facts, what they needed to know from it, without all the scientific talk that perhaps they wouldn't be able to understand. And then, so once that I had determined what I was going to say on them, I then had to draft them to make them aesthetically appealing and then proceed with edits, etc., until they came out like this. If you look in the booklet that I think Loren has, there's copies of each of them as well as the references that I used for each of the handouts. So, concrete knowledge. One thing that we definitely know is that physical activity and exercise is safe for cancer survivors, and that it does improve their quality of life. This is all obviously true for general population as well as cancer. And I just wanted to say like a brief topic from all the handouts that I made. So for goal setting, it's really important and it works well if that cancer survivor has a social support network, as well as if they're journaling the physical activity that they're doing. It can keep them accountable. And for nutrition guidelines, things are quite contraindicated right now. Like there's nothing has been concluded at this point as to like exactly what is the right nutrition guideline to give. So one thing that is pretty concrete though is that for specific cancers there are different nutrition guidelines, such as head and neck. So you want to have a calorie-dense diet as much as possible. And sleep disturbances are twice as prevalent in cancer survivors as they are in general population. And on the handout, on the back of it, there's quite a few suggestions for how to improve your sleep. So one of them is avoiding blue light, which comes from TV, computers, cell phones for an hour prior to bed, or just trying to keep those devices out of your room in general. And another interesting one is, what was I saying? I just lost my train of thought. Oh, limiting naps. So this is challenging because a lot of the cancer survivors that I did talk to throughout this work term napped a lot because they were always tired and they were trying to target their fatigue by sleeping. So it was funny how it always said like shorten your naps, only take up to an hour, don't sleep past the afternoon, and don't sleep in your bed. But a lot of the cancer patients that I was talking to, this is something that they definitely struggled with, so that's something that I would hope would be targeted more in the future. And another big thing is throughout each of the education handouts that I did make, it was important to stress, and the big thing that I talked about with Loren and Nicole was that you stress that exercise can help with each of these things. So for instance, with nutrition, if you're lacking appetite, if you're exercising, it can increase your appetite. With sleep, it can help with your sleep, improve your sleep quality. So basically, that was what we really want to prove, was that physical activity and exercise is very important, even in this population. So with the head and neck cancer patients, as I had said previously, so you want them to be eating a very calorie-dense diet because of where the cancer is, there's a lot of pain involved and it's hard for them to eat. So they lose weight, just like related to the cachexia that we had been speaking about earlier. So that's definitely something we're trying to target in that study, is not losing weight. As well as what Colleen had said previously, definitely stronger with article review and reading randomized control trials at this point in my life than I was 4 months ago. Color Me Rad was a race that I had signed up for before I even knew that I had accepted this position with the work term. So it was cool when I found out that we were supposed to be putting a team in, so I loved that. And then when it got rearranged with the flood, I still was able to run it, unlike 3/4 of the people that I think had originally registered for this race. Anyways, the point was that when I found out that the marketing team for the Thrive Center was planning on putting up a booth there to talk about the health of Montesab as well as specifically the Thrive Center, I really wanted to get involved in that because I love marketing stuff. So I ran the race, got colored. Our volunteers at the Thrive Center. So our community project, so this is our third project that we've collaborated on together. The purpose of it was to be able to talk to and have connections with every cancer support group and service in this city and in the surrounding area. That's what we really wanted to aim to do, because how good is a service if people don't know about it? So we wanted to make sure that cancer survivors knew about what we were doing, and a good way to do that is if they're Uptown Baker, who obviously know who we are, but just as an example, and they're there and they hear about us, then they would be able to come. So we made very, very big list of people. Are you coming? So that was the point.
The process of completing this community project essentially started with researching all the other cancer support groups across the city, creating a brochure that we could give to them, and then creating letters. There's 2 different types. There's new contact, who are people that we hadn't previously had relationships with, but would like to form that kind of collaborative relationship, and then the contact number. I'm sorry, team. You're okay. I know. And then it needs updated contact letter. So yeah.
Perfect. So regarding distribution, so there was 2 types. Either there are people that we could physically deliver brochures and the letters to within the city, or there are people that we wanted to still be in contact with, but we needed to do that via email. So we would PDF the brochure as well as the letter. Loren would e-sign it on behalf of Nicole, and we sent it via email. So just to give you an update, all of the email contacts have been delivered. All of those have been taken care of, and we are in the process of delivering the ones that are physically in the city. So I think 3 have been delivered thus far. There's about 15 left, I think. But it's happening. It's great.
Okay, so now I'm going to talk about my growth and my personal challenges. So I'm going to start off with the areas that I think I've grown a lot in. When I started out at this practicum, I was terrified. Really excited, don't get me wrong, but terrified because so many of the people that are here are incredibly intelligent and very successful, and I felt totally out of my depth. And the fact that you guys had faith that I would actually complete this project, like, baffles me. But by kind of throwing us in the ocean to sink or swim, I somehow actually managed to get them done, and that gave me so much confidence in my ability to produce work. And so that was huge for me, and now I really believe that I'll be able to do things like grad school or hard projects in the future. So that's good. Time management is something I've struggled with my entire university academic life career. And I didn't struggle with it during this practicum, which is bizarre. And I was trying to figure out why, and I realized it was 3 things. Firstly, I was terrified of failing, and so I really wanted to get stuff done. Secondly, I was so passionate about the work that I was doing, and it made me excited to work on it. And thirdly was I had a great resource of people who were so supportive and were backing me up, and that made me just so jazzed to get things done. And I'm really going to try to find environments like this throughout the rest of my life so that I can continue to foster that and be able to get stuff done. Professionally, my critical thinking skills have improved dramatically. Between the study charts and the article review, I now am able to look at things and not just believe, oh, they're a researcher, they must be doing everything right, which apparently isn't always true. And my understanding of research, which I had mentioned previously, has also improved dramatically, as well as learning to interact in a professional environment. And through the assessments, through going to places like Tom Baker, and even just working with people in the lab, this gave me a ton of great practice because it's so different than the classroom environment and any other part-time cafe job that I've ever had. So I feel like those skills will serve me for a long time. Some of the challenges that I had were my attention to detail. Sometimes I'm so busy, running through trying to get stuff done that I forget the small stuff, and it's really important when you're writing manuals or manuscripts or anything like that. And so that's something that I'm going to continue to work on and hopefully improve in the future, but I have noticed a big difference throughout this semester. My writing ability, I can be quite wordy sometimes, and learning how to condense my writing was something that I was challenged with, but I feel like has improved. And then, like I previously mentioned, adjusting to professional standards when you are used to a classroom standards, all of a sudden having to adjust to a workplace, and not just any workplace, but this very impressive workplace was definitely a challenge, but I feel like it benefited us a lot. So yeah. Is this the career for me? I loved working here, and I would have never expected to have loved working, especially in terms of assessments and enhanced sessions. The exercise classing was never something that really even crossed my mind, and I loved it. So I'm going to now get my CEP certification, which I'm very excited about. And I'm also going to continue working in the lab throughout the year, and I'm really, really excited about that. Long term, I'm still thinking I want to go into medicine, but who knows? So yeah, that's my answer to that. Anything is possible.
So definitely growth, definitely challenges. I think that's the simplest way to sum up my work term. Growth, one of the biggest things that I feel is that in this work term, I really felt like it was going from undergrad work to graduate work, so very independent deadlines, but you really had to figure things out on your own. And that was something I definitely struggled with. But the point is that going into my 5th year now of KNES undergrad, I do feel like a stronger student, just based off the skills that I've been working on and learning this summer, which is fantastic. Communication, this is a big thing that Loren and Nicole, that we talked about a lot, and it's something that I think I did improve on closer to the end of the semester. And it was something I was, every time that I've done a project in my undergrad, I've always kept it to myself, mine, and then I hand it in. Any editing I do for myself. But something that I had to learn in this work term was that you need to show your work to other people in order to get their opinion and make sure that you're not totally left field when you hand it in and you're not doing something poorly or the wrong way. So that was something I really needed to work on, was handing in crappy drafts and then working off of it. So we figured it out, worked on that, definitely something I improved on. Knowledge translation is also huge. As I had previously mentioned, with the Journal Club, we did do a lot of, that was analyzation, but also just with the research that we had been reading throughout the entire semester or term. And just being able to see that that can be turned into community programs, which was also one of the goals on my learning contract. I wanted to be able to see how a research study is even conducted or started through to when it's used in community programming, clinical, all of that stuff, where it's actually, the results that are found can be used in general. Anyways, creativity. So this is my highlight, because I have never in my life, until Loren told me at my final report, have I ever been called creative in my entire life, other than my study partner, but she's 5. So anyway, so that was hilarious for me to think that I am actually creative. I've never thought that in my life, and now I'm starting to consider that you may be true, you might be right. So that's definitely growth. Challenges, like I said, communication for sure. Being able to say, you know, a big thing that I learned from Nicole was the fact that if you're not going to have something done by a deadline, you don't know that at the deadline. You know it 3 days before, weeks before. So that's definitely something I'm never going to forget coming out of this work term, is that you know that before and you need to communicate that. So that was huge. At the beginning of the semester in the spring, I was diagnosed with general anxiety disorder, and I found that my anxiety with my procrastination like really played into each other, and it was terrible. And at my midpoint, I think Nicole, you said it was like swimming, but swimming up. So like you're not getting anywhere you really want to, but it's like impossible. So that was definitely something I struggled with huge. Deadlines, absolutely. There's never a time within my work term that I didn't want to complete the work and I didn't want it to be amazing, but what I did struggle with was handing it in on time. So that was a big thing that we talked about many, many times, and I addressed, and I always was very thankful for the feedback and both of you being very, very honest and upfront with me. Very great. So overall, I think that these challenges and this growth led to some major character building, and I think that is just fine. I think that's a very good thing. Regarding this being a career for me, I think there are definitely elements of my work term that I will most certainly look for when it comes to careers in my future. So prior to me going to the U of C, I completed a fitness leadership certificate at Grand Prairie Regional College, and that was where I first got exposure to working in fitness class, correcting, supervising, supporting people that wanted to lose weight or have fitness goals. So I love that, and I will always love that, and that was very evident here as well as it was previously. So that is something I will look for in the future. The handout drafting, when I actually have the handouts, I love them, and I think that's so neat that you make these documents from blank paper and there's so much information on them. So I did enjoy that. The absolute major thing that I learned from this work term regarding my future career came from conversations that I had with Loren, and that's about grad school. And before this work term, I was physio, just applying physio everywhere. That's all I wanted to do. But I actually decided that I do want to do an MPH. I'm going to be applying for a Master of Public Health as well as Master of Science in Health Promotion at these 3 schools. And that I want to do a master's and then continue on to do a doctorate of physio in Australia, as opposed to just going straight in. So that's pretty exciting, and that's because of Loren. Suggestions and feedback. So I actually spoke to Doug Brown about this when he was here at Midpoint, and in engineering, I'm sure you all know that there's the option to do a 5-year program where you do a 1-year co-op. So I think because of the experiences that we've had with our work term, that it would be optimal if we could incorporate that into the kinesiology faculty. So either you do a 4-year undergrad program and then add on a 1-year full work term, or perhaps you could do 2 separate work terms within that 1 year. But regardless, the fact is that I think a co-op program would be fantastic in KNES. Do you have a suggestion? Okay. You keeping it to yourself? Okay, I'll say it. The other suggestion that we had was to do, and it was regarding administrative work in KNES 420, and that's to have less update reports. So there's 3 update reports that are required throughout the semester. So what we were thinking is that we would have a midpoint evaluation report, but instead of having only 3 reports, Monica, that you'd be involved in, that we would CC whoever it is on the update emails every week, so that you are completely aware of what's going on all the time, as opposed to just like one overview every couple weeks. Just an idea. Doesn't have to happen. Just a suggestion. So we also decided that this is the #1 quote that matched how we both felt about our work term experience. And that's coming in and knowing that we didn't have a clue what we were doing, and we were terrified, and we didn't know how we could do it. And it was only when we actually did it that we realized that we were strong enough to do it. And I think that that really became possible not only through us doing the work and struggling ourselves, but having a team like you people here in the room that could support us and ask the right questions, challenge us in the right ways, give us the right assignments, all of those things. And I will forever be thankful for this opportunity, regardless of the challenges that I face, that I can have that growth and go forward in my life because of this opportunity.
I'm just going to do a final thank you as well. Never in such a short period of time have I experienced so much growth and learned so much, and I really thank you guys for trusting me to do this practicum, and I am so grateful for the opportunities that you guys have given me, and I'm so excited for the future.
Yay! What are your questions? Hold that sucker.
Questions for the peanut gallery?
That
Anyone?
was very good.
Yay.
I thought both of your projects were very interesting. It's really good to see what we do in our 420, because your comment about co-op is something that when Monica and I, way back when we created 420, we started out on the co-op path.
Oh, interesting. Cool.
And we did. That's what we started out looking at.
So now it's coming from the student side that it's good.
Yeah. And there was some, I don't know if I'm going to call them roadblocks or something that were up, and so at the time we thought, how can we best give the students, practicum's great, but it's one course, and so if you want to get a feel for what it's like to be really out there,
Yes.
was the work term is what we came up with. And it was great that we have people like Nicole, Reed, and other people in our faculty where the students can actually do it right here in our building.
There's no comparison to it,
Yeah.
for sure.
So that's really good to hear from our perspective, and I don't think we've had a lot over the years, so it's good always to develop it, right? And to improve it, we always need to improve it. So that side of things is very interesting to me, and to see what you produce is excellent. To see when you have all that time, that's great. But
Sometimes it doesn't feel like
what about the co-op though? Is why you why it's just another additional year? But what
so
about that?
I think definitely based on pretty much everything that we've said to you today. So I think there's those benefits that come from it. The other obvious part that I used to date an engineer, and he did a co-op, and then his first job came from that. And just the experience that you gain. So you're still in school, so you still feel like you're safe. But when you graduated, there's definitely ample opportunities, more so because of the experience you've had within your degree, that you'll be able to have a job with them or with another company.
That's an additional year.
Yeah. So how does that? I was just going to say, how is that not true of what you just did? Like 420.
I think that it should be.
And I don't mean specific to this, but I'm just trying to get it as opposed to a 420. How's
Yeah.
it different?
I think it would basically be 420, but it would be a full year. Or you could have, like I said before, 2 work terms within a year and just refer to it as co-op. I think is more so. That would be the only difference I would think.
And have it mandatory for all students, right?
If they're registered in that program.
Oh, okay.
Yes. Not for every KNES student.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sign up for it, apply for it.
Exactly.
Oh,
So then the student would have to have two terms of options.
Yeah. Or 1. It's just an idea.
No, I think if
No,
you made
just-
it as a co-op, you'd add additional
No,
year
just
onto
she's
that.
talking about 2 work terms.
Well, you do 1 full, so I have like 2 ideas. These are obviously very grassroots. I haven't thought these through like 1000%, but either you do 1 full year of a work term, or within your co-op year, you can refer to it as either.
Right.
You would have 2 separate opportunities, at the middle. So you could even say, like, if you have your midpoint evaluation and you're like, if I complete this project, can I try something else? perhaps you could do 2 within your co-op year. But like generally, co-op is only 1 position that you stay at one place. So,
it's all they're all very good comments. It's just interesting to think about how we do this because you are obviously both like senior students, right?
Yes.
So you would have been a very different student, even if it was 2 of you in Nicole and Loren's areas 2 years ago.
Very much so.
Right? So it requires a certain student for individuals like these 2 to get
yes.
to get what they need. It becomes a very different
yes.
experience, right?
I think there's also one thing that I've experienced with my peers at the U of C is that they come in and they start in general Kines, and a lot of them want to transfer into health and exercise physiology, and there's that option to transfer. So I think that perhaps, maybe it's a decision that needs to be made 2 years into your degree or 3 years into your degree, and that's when you decide that you want to do a co-op. So you have the option of committing to it right off the bat when you're coming to U of C first year, or if you want to transfer into the program later in your degree.
The other thing you should know is that when I brought this forward for university approval,
yes,
I got quite a bit of grilling because it was 5 half-course equivalents.
Right.
It's too much.
Yeah.
And so we argued, obviously, that we were successful in being able to argue that this is worth that to our
right.
students. But do you have any comments on that? And I think that's part of where we've not received as many students in the area because they may not have that much room in their degree.
Yes.
To put
I'm taking extra. Like I don't
right.
need this, but I'm taking it, and I'm taking 6 more courses because I want to.
Right.
But
I guess that's part of it is not all students have that
yes.
degree or want to do it. So do
right.
you think there's more KNES students out there? Engineering, it's their culture.
Yeah.
Right.
The one thing that I was thinking is how I don't know how the credits work in engineering for their co-op, etc. So it'd be interesting to meet with the equivalent of you in their faculty to see what they say about that because I personally don't know.
I don't think they get course credit. I think
it's paid.
Additional, and it's paid.
It's
yeah.
paid.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha.
This is very different.
They have a whole
yes.
floor dedicated to people administering
Jeez.
that internship program.
Because I went to U of A and I did a work term like this, and I thought it was mandatory. I thought it was part of you had to do an extra work term, but maybe it wasn't.
No, some schools have it
Yeah,
mandatory.
I
it
think
was,
that at
it
least
was
a
the most I
practical
learned as well in my whole degree.
The thing is,
Yeah,
that Dean
exactly.
Werther said that at U of O, the University of Ottawa, adopted work term with the practicums were mandatory,
Yes.
and she ran into trouble with it because the people who don't want to take the course aren't invested, and it reflects upon the employer, and it reflects upon the relationship and the community and everything.
A motivated student come in.
For sure,
Right,
especially when they're
yeah.
asked to do something like this.
Yeah.
So perhaps there would be like a general education option that you could either take one or the other because it's not fair either to, like you're saying, to the supervisor of people that are taking all these work-term students if they're not going to do anything, right? So either you have a course that equals it or you take the co-op.
Well, the
or
other
work
aspect
term.
of it is when we try to create work term experiences, you two both got excellent experiences from Nicole and Loren. But there's others out there who we start to get to the point where you start to get need so many, and you're starting to get some poor experiences where students are
because there's always going to be great
and doing things like that in fitness centers, and so
right.
that also becomes an issue. So I think these are all really good comments. And plus, we're in the middle of a curriculum review as our faculty, so we've had discussions about whether or not every student should do a practicum, or like, so we've come up with some other ideas, and so these are good comments to hear from the students.
It's interesting too because Mika, who did a 6 to 7 hour small practicum with us and then came into this position after she graduated, I had the opportunity to work with her as well, and and a few others who have done similar 6 to 7 hour one, and they get a very different experience. And I wonder if you can't take that many credits out to do the full work term. I don't know how this would work in the schedule, but it would be nice if there was like a 15-hour one where they can get invested and we can give them some independent projects.
Right. So, for example, Loren, in our pedagogy program, we have 2 practicums that are required, and that could be pedagogy or coaching. So it's either a teaching environment or a coaching environment. Their first one is basic, roughly. So it's a little less than this, but it's about 3 hours a week. So it's 36 hours we require them to do, and we structure it quite a bit as to what we want them to get out of it. Their second practicum is bumped up double that, and now they can do it very differently. They don't have to do it weekly. They can take, for example, all of reading break and go to a school and see what it's like to be in a school for a week, right? As well as go to schools on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday if their schedule permits. And so we give them that flexibility, and it's exactly what you said. The first practicum is much less hours.
Yeah.
And then the second one gives them a little bit less than this,
Right.
but much more to see what it's like to be in that world, right?
Right.
But just for a week.
Oh, no, it's for the whole term.
For the whole term, they're.
But then they do intensive for a week and then go
Yeah.
into school to get their other hours.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Realistically, though, there's like no comparison to being completely immersed for an entire
Yeah.
semester in it. Like you can't get that experience unless you're
But as you
fully,
said,
fully
you can't
committed.
work and you can't do it.
Oh
Right.
no, no,
Yeah,
no.
yeah.
Mm-mm. Don't do that.
Yeah. So that's another expense for the students.
Yes, 100%.
All things
Yeah, we got it.
interested about the midterm report stuff and everything too.
Just
So
an
you think it
idea.
should be a weekly?
Like so, it's just that we had the update emails that we had to send anyways. So, and
Which was a requirement that not every practicum does. That
no,
was one
no,
thing
it's
that
from you, but it was
Yeah.
a fantastic idea. So
Yeah.
what I'm saying is, if every practicum student had to do a Friday update or
weekly.
Wednesday, whatever,
Yeah.
an update email weekly, and to CC you on it, so you have a clue what we're doing. I mean, it's obviously a lot more paperwork, like I think that you were going to say, but it's just then you know specifically what we're working on, as opposed to just an overview. Just an idea, because I know that Colleen struggled sometimes with the reports and like what we wanted to say and how specific we needed to be.
Because after they were every like 3 weeks approximately, and I found that sometimes in that period of 3 weeks there wasn't enough for me to say because my attitude hadn't changed that much since my last update report. So I thought only doing a midpoint and a final would have been enough for me to express my feelings about the work environment and stuff like that. So that's kind of where that comment came from, because I found it challenging to find things to write about in like my third.
So you're talking about weekly just tasks, what you
Well,
think?
so
That's
Alicia and I
probably-
were saying is like a combination, because I was saying I only wanted the middle and the end, and so we were thinking if you wanted to like
it's two
stay,
different things.
yeah. So if you wanted to stay more involved, then potentially be CC'd on the weekly updates, but mostly just like cut down
Just
the.
the 2 reports. and then
Exactly.
Just so you know, the weekly update, it included the activities that we're doing every week, what we are intending to do the next week, how many hours we had worked and what those hours had been delegated to between our projects, as well as feedback for our supervisors and just general commentary as to how our work term was going.
I also think, you know, with this project, when Nicole and I sat down, I think that when both of you comment on this, having both of you, because I think having that community aspect, so they worked on the community project, and then the journal club, so the research aspect, right, and both of your skills, and critically, by the end of it, our last one, they were ripping apart these articles and asking questions that I had no idea what the answer was. And it was amazing to see from the beginning to the end. And then, you know, in Colleen's spare time, and Alicia did this as well, just the ability to critically analyze an article. And this is so helpful for the lab. I mean, this could be a resource. Helpful for my chemistry.
Even for us too, like in the rest of our undergrads, to have that. The other thing I want to say regarding the partnership is that you have to be honest in the sense that it could go one or two ways. So Colleen and I are very, very good friends now. We had a fantastic experience, but we promised each other at the beginning of the semester that was how it was going to go. There's always, like, there's an opportunity for that to go the opposite as well, if you have two people.
Total clash, yeah.
But we
But
promised
typically
it
there's
was
not
not.
2 students in
Right.
placement, right?
Right.
But the support
And it
is
is a
very-
lot of, like, it's a lot of work from the, well, it's both, but it is another thing that you take on, which was so
Right.
an excellent experience for me as a grad student, getting to work with them. You know, I think it's a really good experience for grad students to get to have that opportunity. But
Because this is your first work term, like we're your first one.
it was I think Nicole in the whole lab, wasn't it? Her
First
full-time
ones.
work
Yeah.
term.
Oh,
wow.
6 hours.
And then you'll have Casey.
And then we'll have Casey in there. We'll do another one. Yeah, and she'll be by herself. But maybe we can do a little journal club with her, because I thought that was useful for them.
Very much so.
And I've got to say,
100%.
to be honest, I said no to the work term because I knew my summer was busy and I wasn't here for
Summer's a
it.
bad time for that.
It is a bad time, and Lauren said, "Well, I'll do it." I said, "Okay, I'm going to hold you to this." So
Yeah.
kudos go to really to Ren, because she was the hands-on,
Absolutely.
day to day. I just did emails and made meetings when I could, and edited, put all the red marks and everything.
No,
But you did.
Nicole, you're amazing support. Yeah, and it was you guys, when you talk about what you've learned, I think it's exactly what, and maybe, you know, what we talked about at your final meetings and what Nicole and I put into the final reports.
Yes.
But I'm really proud of you both. I think you've both taken something different from this experience, and you know, the confidence that I hope you've both gained, and being aware of some things that you can continue to work on. Because if you're not leaving with that, then you've missed a big component of this, because this is a teaching opportunity.
It's
So
the point of the work term.
exactly. So knowing that you guys are coming away with things you want to continue to work on is fantastic. I think that's an accomplishment in itself. And just what you've accomplished, I mean, you know, Colleen, you talk about time management, and honestly, it would be like the next. We'd be talking. Can you finish this by 2 weeks? And the next morning, it's like on my desk, and I'm thinking, well, okay, now I need to think about other things to give her. And you know, Alicia, you're talking about your time management, continue to work on. But at the end, looking at that book and what you've produced is really the creativity that you have is honestly they're beautiful, and it's a really excellent handout. So I think you both have done a really good job, and it was an honor to get to work with you. So.
Perfect.
Yeah, good job.
Yay!
Sorry for the minor panic attack halfway through the I know, I choked you.
Okay.
Great job.
Wait, Loren and I have to run.